All right, let's take a moment for a breathe of the hell. A little bit of leadership lessons from General Ulysses S. Grant. That's right. Get back into it where we left off here on lesson number 21. Last year's good idea. When Grant arrived in California, prices for supplies were high. So he and 3 fellow officers got the bright idea that they could raise a crop of potatoes and sell it for a handsome profit. Our crops were enormous. Lucky for us, the Columbia River overflowed and killed most of our crop. Lucky for us, right? This saved digging it up, for everybody on the Pacific coast seemed to have come to the conclusion at the same time that agriculture would be profitable. In 1853, more than 3/4 of the potatoes raised were permitted to rot in the ground or had to be thrown away. Here's your lesson. Last year's good idea may not be so good this year. If the timing isn't right, you'll have a loser. Loser. Number 22. People need meaningful work. Okay? When Grant's name is mentioned, the first image most Americans have is that of a hard-drinking general. This characterization of Grant dates from the last pre-Civil War Army post at Fort Humboldt, California. He had left his wife nearly 2 years earlier, pregnant and with their 2-year-old son. Grant was homesick, but more importantly, because he and his commanding officer did not hit it off, he was given no work to do. On February 2nd, 1854, he wrote a letter to his wife that began, "You do not know how forsaken I feel here. I do nothing but sit in my room and read and occasionally take a short ride on one of the public horses." A month later, he wrote, "I have not been 100 yards from my door but once in the last 2 weeks." Grant requested a transfer, but his request had been denied. My family consisted now of a wife and 2 children. I saw no chance of supporting them on the Pacific coast out of my pay as an Army officer. I concluded, therefore, to resign. Because he had no meaningful responsibilities, Grant's feelings of loneliness were exacerbated. This, in turn, led to increased drinking and his resignation from the Army. Here's your lesson. Okay? Without meaningful work, life stinks. Okay? People become demoralized and incapacitated. Some become permanently turned off and lose their future potential. Having a chronically underworked staff is every bit as bad as having one that's overworked. Lesson 23. Failure, simply titled. After rejoining his family in 1854, Grant tried his hand at farming and real estate. He didn't like either very much and failed at both. He lacked adequate capital to make a go of it as a small farmer, and according to his wife Julia, he was too soft-hearted to succeed in the real estate business as a rent collector. I cannot imagine how my dear husband ever thought of going into such a business, as he never could collect a penny that was owed to him. My apologies for the female voice. In May of 1860, Grant moved to Galena, Illinois, to take a job in his father's leather goods store. I was normally only a clerk, support myself and family on a stipulated salary. In reality, my position was different. My father had never lived in Galena himself, but had established my 2 brothers there. When I went there, it was my father's intention to give up all connection with the family business himself and to establish his 3 sons in it. And here's the lesson. A person need not become a failure just by virtue of having been associated with a couple of failed enterprises. Don't be too quick to give up on people who have 1 or 2 failures under their belt, especially if they failed at things they really didn't enjoy doing. Number 24, production disruptions. As 1860 drew to a close, the United States was again preparing to go to war, this time with itself. Grant foresaw that a civil war would result in a blockade of southern ports And that in turn would result in the South losing its predominant position as the world's foremost exporter of cotton. This disturbance will give such an impetus to the production of their staple, cotton, in other parts of the world that they can never recover the control of the market again for that commodity. And the lesson is, if for whatever reason you stop production, someone else will fill the void, and you will never be able to recover your lost market share. Oh, yes. Moving on to Chapter 3. Turn mistakes into training opportunities. Now, for those of you who was keeping up, I skipped past stating we were in Chapter 2, which was failure. And we just finished that one. All right. November 1861. April through November 1861. The Civil War begins, and Grant, appointed colonel in command of the 21st Illinois Regiment, turns an offense punishable by death into a training opportunity. Promoted to brigadier general, he narrowly escapes being taken prisoner. Number 25. This will take us out for the day. Interviews reveal more than resumes. Ooh, speaks to the heart right there. I mean, it's common sense. After Fort Sumter was fired upon, Grant offered his services to Governor of Illinois and was initially assigned in April 1861, to the Adjutant General's office. About a month later, he went to Cincinnati to pay a call on Major General George McClellan. I wanted to see him. I had known him slightly at West Point, where we served 1 year together in the Mexican War. I was in hopes that when he saw me, he would offer me a position on his staff. I called on 2 successive days at his office, but failed to see him on either occasion. Here's a lesson, all right? Conducting job interviews is very time-consuming, especially for management positions. But resumes never tell the full story, so try to arrange at least a courtesy interview with every candidate who is not obviously unqualified for the vacancy. Otherwise, you could miss a bet by not filling the position with the best person available. All right, when we pick up next time, we'll be on number 26. A bad reputation. Yeah, look forward to that. I'm going to close the book for now. And let's move on. Yeah, shall we?